Hi there, it's Sarah, and I've been asked to run through some of the main points any beginner user of an xTool laser would like to learn. And for those of you new to my channel, if you feel I'm going too fast, go to the cog on your YouTube player and go to playback speed. Anything above the word normal will slow it down. So that is where you want to be. Again, you can go to playback speed, which is found in the little YouTube settings playback, and it looks like a cog. I'm going to be focusing on xTool Studio. To validate whatever version you're looking for, you can open xTool Studio and you can click on the About. You can see I'm using version 1.1.10. If you want to check for updates, you can do that right here as well, and it'll let you know. You don't have to go out to the software pages. I do recommend you having multiple versions, and that you can do by saving the software to your device instead of overwriting your existing software. Your screen may not look like mine. This is the home screen. And our home screens will pretty much look the same. We have a series of menus on the left, we have our projects on the very top bar, and then we have some suggestions or products below. I would recommend you always sign in. If you sign in, you can use the cloud, which they call MySpace, but you can also use your AI credits or your credits for additional editing. All of that is in here. Additionally, you can bookmark ideas and go into Atom, bookmark and save those projects to be done at a future date. So I'm going to start by skipping this entire screen. I've already done a tutorial about Studio in general, so I'm really only speaking to those people who aren't that familiar with Studio. Whether you are familiar with XCS, which was the creative space xTool lasers used before, or this is your first time opening this software, this tutorial is for you. Now, with regard to the laser, I'm just going to be using any of them. It doesn't matter. Your screen may have this popped out over here. After you do the very first connect and tutorial, it'll walk you through a safety video, those kinds of things. Afterwards, your screen may look like this, but it may not. You can see up here, the last one I used was my F2. But I have an S1, a P2, an M1 Ultra, an M1. All of those lasers are available to you. So if your screen doesn't look like mine, don't worry, it's okay. We all have the same options inside of Studio. So the very first thing I want to talk about is this left-hand menu. The primary thing you're going to start with is this software menu right here. All of these are basically functions that you have elsewhere in your system, so we're not actually going to talk about any of these. We're going to skip down to View. Some people really do like a dark canvas. If that's you get headaches or migraines from a light canvas, absolutely go ahead and change that here. Additionally, right under that, you have the ability to have the Help menu. Now that is different from a user guide, and it is different from your device user guide. However, you can access Help. Now I want to skip down to Settings. So this is where I get a lot of questions. The first is, hey, my machine is in millimeters. I'd like to work in inches. Very first thing. What you see here is a short or a hotkey. So mine is a command symbol because I'm on a Mac. You, if you're on a Windows, would have a control symbol there. And what happens is if we hold down the command or control and press that letter, we'll swap in between millimeters and inches for K. We'll also be able to turn on and off a very useful feature called auto snapping. So you can see it's off right now. It's not checked. And if I close this and hit Command R, it will be on. Let me come back in here, and now you can see it's on. I can change that just using my hotkeys, and I often do. If you want to know about all the hotkeys, you can click this and it'll take you to the full list on xTool's website. There's a lot of really good stuff in here, but for the most part, this up here, that's where you're going to be. So I'm going to close that out. Over here on the left-hand menu, You can imagine that is to save the file. You can save it locally to your drive or an external drive, or you can save it to MySpace, which is their cloud storage. This is the cloud storage. That's the shortcut. This is to import an image. Now, a lot of people think, oh, I can't import anything else here. You can actually come in here. You can see these are both JPEG, but my XCS files are grayed out. That is because we are importing and not opening. Let me come in here to an SVG. You can see that if you're importing SVGs, that is available to open. However, the AI file that I made that SVG in is not available. If something is grayed out, it means that the file is not supported through this method. To open an XCS file, that is going to be Open Project. So you can see if I go back into photo editing, now these two XCS files are available to open. So in the beginning, import and open are going to be considered two different things for you. The good thing is, if you're working on a file, your most recent ones will be here and you can kind of scroll through them. This is text. We'll get to that. These are basic shapes. This is templates. Now, I actually recommend people to come in here and look around, especially if you're new. There's going to be a link out to what is called Atom, ATOMM, that have a lot of projects in there. Some will give you instructions. And so if you're a beginner, these templates are a great place to start. Some of them are free, some of them require payment. However, you can absolutely peruse this. The next one is sort of their elements menu, and there's a ton of stuff in here. Everything from patterns to images to SVGs and vectors. There's a lot going on in here. I urge you to come up here. You can see, like, if you want to look for one heart, there's a whole lot of stuff with hearts. So we have flat files like that vector. We also have editable hearts like this one. So just be sure you explore in here. You're not going to break anything. The next one is my favorite menu. I use it a lot. We'll talk a little bit about most of these later. Most important is material test array. We also have measurement. And then for my very new people to xTool lasers, these generators are a lot of fun. I do recommend starting with the keychain generator. I do have a little bit of a video on that inside of my xTool Studio overview. However, let me know if you want me to walk you through this. It's super fun and it's a great first project win. The next one is going to be their AI chat. This is something I use a lot. You can see I have quite a few credits and I use them. I am still learning this, and it's very different than Adobe Firefly or GPT or Claude. There's a lot different stuff that we have available to us here. We also can externally access this via Atom, ATOMM, and AI Make. I have another video on that as well, but if you want more detail on that, I'll walk you through it. This is actually a very robust tool for not a lot of AI credits. And then we have the last thing, which is just all the files inside of your MySpace. So this is save to the cloud, and this is access your files from the cloud. So you can see I have some stuff in here. There you go. All right, so that's the left-hand top menu. I want you to really focus now on the very bottom left-hand menu. You'll see three icons. One is a little arrow, and if you click on it, there's a hand. Now watch what happens. When you're on an arrow, I can select items. When you're on hand, I am moving the entire piece. This is really great when you're zoomed in at 6,000% and you can move the entire canvas. Let's go back. Oh, there you go. Command or Control 0 will get everything back to its place, or you can come down here. The next option is Canvas, and this, I love this. You can see here are all my topics to not overwhelm you. The next one is the one you will use the most. Now I'm going to have an entire video on the color or layer and the objects list. But you can see here, every single thing here is repeated here. And that is because watch what happens on the screen when I click the beginner overview. You can see that it is now selected. We also have two menus that pop up. We have a top bar menu and we have the processing menu at the right. Again, I'm going to go into these a little bit different in just a second. So I just want you to know, if you don't see any menus, it's because we haven't selected anything. You can click on an item on your canvas, or you can click on an item in the layers and objects list, and both will work. So I'm going to close out my layers and objects panel. I'm going to hit Command 0 to bring this back to the center. Now, as I mentioned, you can see when we have something selected, our right bar menu, which is the processing menu, will change. Watch what happens when I select it off of it. You can see we have an overview only. Now, the part that doesn't change is up here at the top. We have the little AI helper. We have a machine. We have to switch or connect that machine. And then we have the machine specific items. So I have to turn on one of my machines in order for the device settings to come up. I urge you to click on that. That's going to be things like how bright you want the lighting, how long you want the auto exhaust to run, if you have any accessories connected, and the information for those. All of that will be in that first one. The second one will take you to the xTool software user guide. Software meaning help, not software meaning xTool Studio. So you'll be able to actually search inside of this user guide. And the last thing here, depending on your machine, you will have a project tutorial. Now, some of the older machines don't really have that. All of the newer machines do. And I've done all of them. They're great. They're fun. We also have the same section here. This is the options based on your machine. So if you're running the M1 Ultra, you don't have this, but you also do have print on inkjet. You also have electrostatic mat or gold foil pen. If you're on P3, you're going to have different stuff. Most of us all pretty much have the rotary. We have process on base plate, and we could potentially have a honeycomb option. However, this is going to be machine specific. When you are using the rotary, you have to choose one of these. When you are using the, the little extension thing, you have to choose one of these. So this is going to be machine dependent. Now the next one, there's a whole video on this one. The materials library is what brought a lot of brand new laser users to xTool. And I will tell you, as having many brands of lasers, this is the best library hands down. Let's say I want to burn red acrylic. I have options that come up. I can also add different materials so that builds the library. Either way, I can just hit apply after I read a little bit about that actual material. You'll get tips like this when you select a material. And now, why does that matter? Well, if I click on this, I now have settings. So these settings are what is called the materials library. If we click right here, you can see xTool has already done some testing for us. These are the engraving test settings. Here are the cut test settings, and it will always put what's called a reference, meaning what they believe is the best cut setting. It won't work all the time, and you may prefer a different look. Either way, this is a great place to start. Again, we're going to go into that a little bit later, but for now, just know that it's here. We start all of the reference settings and the auto inputs here, right here, by choosing our material. Now, right below that, depending on your machine, this line is going to look different. I'm connected to the F2 right now, but let's go ahead and connect a different machine. I'm going to choose one with pinpoint positioning. So let's choose Let's choose the M1 Ultra. So there is no camera with the M1 Ultra or with my S1 40 watt. So what we use there is called marking. And so marking will allow us to identify the processing area. We still have this auto distance measure, and we even have a camera option, meaning you put the little stickers or you snap a little picture with the stickers, and you have the ability to position via camera. When we have cameras, we have an autofocus, and we also have just take a snapshot. So that is going to be dependent upon your machine. Just know both of them work. There's a ton of user information on that, and if you need any tutorials, I will provide them for you. Just leave them down below with your machine, and if you're having any questions about marking or measuring, I will talk about that in later tutorials as well. Right below that, we're going to have options. So I just want to put a couple of things here. I just hit R on my keyboard and held down Shift to get a square. I hit C on my keyboard and held down Shift and dragged out to get a circle. I'm just putting these on so you can see. So I'm going to change one of these to engrave by selecting my processing type. Yours may only have score, engrave, and cut. If you are using an image, you will only have engrave. We're going to go to that import. Remember I told you we have the import. Let's go ahead and take this little golden doodle. Now for this one, remember I said I would like to keep the image at the original size, or you can ask me every time. Here you go. I'm going to scale this one down because I am working on the even more so. Let's go 2 inches. So look what is the difference that happens in the right-hand processing menu, which is over here. When I am selected on an image, I only have engrave. Doesn't matter if it's color engraving or just engraving. When I am selecting a vector, I have score, engrave, and cut. This is the type of file that you're importing. This is a JPEG, could be a PNG, a bitmap of any kind. This, or WebP, this is like an SVG or a DXF. We have more options with those file types. If you don't have the options you want, that's going to require editing, which is built right into this system, and we'll talk about in just a second when we get to that top menu. Now, right below, we talked a little bit about this reference testing here. Right below that, we have settings. Now, this laser has a couple of lasers inside of it, but normally you're just going to have whether or not, let's say you want to cut, you want to have power, speed, the number of passes. We have some details on here. Already have a video on that for you on how to use that. This is where you're going to spend a good amount of time. This is also where you're going to experience the most frustration. I'm sorry, but I want to set expectations now. This right here, all of in here, is what determines how long things will take and how well they come out. Hands down. This is why I'm going to have an entire video for you on material testing. But I want to skip down. When we go back to image, your options may change. You can read about every single one of these. I think if you hover now, we can read. Yeah, see, if you hover, you get a little GIF of whatever is happening over here. I strongly urge you to go through and hover on all of your options. You can hover here as well, okay? And even if you come down here, you can hover and like get a little hint or whatever. Okay, now, again, I am not selected anything, so we just see general summaries over here. Below that, you will have one of two things. So preview may not be available to you, depending on what software and or machine, but preview will allow you to set your settings, have your material loaded, and then it'll give you an actual image of what is going to happen. You can turn off things you don't want processed, okay? So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna tell it to do something with these two things. One is engrave, one is cut, okay? So now let's do the preview. What this is going to show is what the laser will actually do. And you can see it's still in beta. So if I load this, you can see this piece, this square will engrave, this piece, which was a circle, will cut out. This is a really good check for those people who are new to laser processing. The next set below that, you could have something called framing, or you could just have process there. That's going to be machine dependent. So here, look at the framing settings for the M1. Look at the framing settings for the F2. I'm going to change devices. This is a camera-based option, but look down here. There's no framing. You see? So we have pinpoint position framing, we have camera framing, and we have no framing. There are different settings that are going to appear down here at the bottom based on your machine. However, if you see someone else's video and they're using a different machine than you, you will know you have additional options down in that area. Okay, so that's it for the right-hand side menu. The only thing right down here is a task list, which if you click, it'll show you what you're doing or what you've done that day. We have zoom in, zoom out, we have undo and redo. That's basically it. Now, the meat and the money. I'm going to close over just by hovering on the edge of this. You can see this little tab that comes out. I'm going to click that and hide it. And the reason I'm going to do that is because a different menu is going to appear based on what I select. So let's select this text. You can see a menu bar pops up. I have positioning, I have sizing, lock aspect ratio, angle, and then I have, this is arrange, this is positioning. The next one is alignment. So you can align things both to the canvas and in relation to something else. So if I wanted to align beginner overview, I can just select that and hit left. Conversely, I can just horizontally align it to the canvas. I can also, however, select two items and then it becomes relational. So I can select horizontal alignment or I can select align left. Either way, these are the same commands, right? The next one is mirror or reflect. So if you are doing a backwards engraving onto glass and it's basically flip it upside down, flip it right sides, left to right. Now, because we are in active text mode, we have a text menu. If you are brand new, this is going to load very slowly. Every single time you load XCS or xTool Studio, it will, however, load faster. So it's okay if it takes a little while. Start it, go get a cup of coffee. I have 2,600 fonts on my computer, so mine takes a long time if I have to re-update the program. So what's going to happen is you may not have anything in recent. You may have just these recommended fonts, but you have the ability to use not only their system fonts, but you have the ability to upload your own fonts. Now, I don't recommend uploading fonts via xTool Studio. I actually recommend you upload them via your computer. If you don't know how to do that, you can just Google my device plus install a font. Once you've installed it on your device, it can show up here. You can also search for your fonts if you're like me and have many, or you can ask the system fonts provided by xTool to only bring up serif fonts or only bring up stencil fonts. You can use these shortcuts. You can also bookmark fonts. So if there's a font you like a lot or use a lot, like you can see I do these a lot, you can actually bookmark it and it'll show up here so you don't have to filter through other stuff. I'm going to close this now just by hitting the X here. Command or Control 0 takes me back to the middle. So this one selects a font. This one selects a type of font. So if that font is loaded with a bold or an italic or a bold italic, all of those will show up here. Many fonts don't have those. Usually these system fonts do. The next one is size. So you can either type it here or you can use the little arrows. Either way. Now the next one, a little bit more advanced. This is going to be, let me do this. Okay. We're just going to be looking at this black over here. There you go. A little out of the way. When I select the drop-down menu specifically in text, you can see I have two options. These are spacing. So this one is the height between the lines. See that? This one is the space between the letters. You may have learned it as kerning. Here you go. The next one is relation to line. This is left align, center align, right align. I know you know this, but I'm thorough. The next one is all caps, lowercase, or combo, I should say. So that will be a pop-out menu. We can close that menu now. Now this one is really cool, and we'll actually come in. I'm going to use the word hello. I'm actually going to change the font into a script font. Now you can see here, let me close this. When the font is loaded as score, okay, you can see there's overlap. If you want less overlap, you can come back here and increase. You can decrease. You can micro decrease, right? You can put positive or negative numbers in, and you can use decimals. When it goes to an engraving or a cutting, it will follow the path of each of the letters. So even though you've changed it to engrave, it doesn't take away that each of these are individual letters. So before you process, you hit up here, this is called weld. So if when you weld, it takes those lines away. Now xTool was pretty awesome and allowed us to have editable text in here. So once you do that, you're good. You can come in here and edit this as many times as you want with as many names as you want. Doesn't matter. It will weld them all together. Okay? So this is a pretty key function. Now you can also cancel that welding. You can make some adjustments. So let's say we want negative 0.045. And then you can set it back again. Okay? And again, it'll, it'll stay negative 0.45 because it's now a live text. Okay? So that's all this double A is. I'm going to go ahead and clean up our piece here. This is live text, right? We know it's called live text because the text menu comes up. We can outline or add an offset to any text, and we can also add an inner offset. What we're going to do, I'm going to focus on the external right now. Do you see this line outside of our text? It looks like a really big bubble. That is our offset. We have the ability to change that offset, and again, you can see very small changes through here. Watch right here. You see how that changed? You have multiple options to change things up here, whatever you would like. You also have the ability to set the distance. So here you can see I can set 1, which will be massive, but it'll recalculate. There you go. It'll recalculate it in real time. So here's my 0.5. So if I go down a little bit, so you can see this again a little easier, let's go to 0.079. So you see this little 0, or the little O, it's cutting the inside shapes as well. So let's say you only want this bubble to be an outside. You can just hit outer shapes and that goes away. Now, never click off anywhere over here. You have to hit confirm to lock that in. That pretty much is the entire bar at the top when it comes to text. I want to show you the layers and objects list down here. This is our text menu. Let's close this, scooch this over. The word beginner overview is text, and we know it's text because we have live text here. But look at our outer shape. That little bubble that we just created is called a vector. It says compound vector over here. Those are two separate things now. So the vector menu has appeared. I'm just going to quickly switch between the two so you can see them. So we're on a vector menu. Look about right here. Okay. When we swap to text, our menu changes significantly down here. We have offset still. We have the positioning and the size, lock aspect ratio. We also, these three will be the same. So when you select a vector, you have an entire vector editing menu. These are called nodes, the lines are called paths. I'm going to do an entire video on this because I think it is that valuable. But first, if you have an image, okay, so we've talked about vector and text. If you have an image, this changes again. You also have the ability to have sincerely excellent tools to edit photos. You, as somebody who pays for all of these expensive things, your machine and this free software are all you need. To edit an image specifically, we can come into the edit menu. The first thing, these are things like color, these are things like brightness, inverting if you're going to be engraving something on a black or dark object. All of these things in here are available, and there's a lot in here. Again, we will go into it later. We also have tools menu, cropping, removing background. We can add items. We will use trace a lot and mask a lot. Below that, we have filters. These are free to use. So if you want to turn something into a comic kind of style, it will automatically adjust this picture. I've already talked about some of those in videos, but I will go into more detail on those in a separate video. But this is all for images. Most of this optioning is free. So we do have options in here to pay that will save you time. We always pay with money or time, right? So we've basically covered the entire software. Your software may look a little bit different. This big canvas in the middle will have different sizing, but ultimately we all have the same things. That is it for this video. I need you to take a break because you did a lot. You looked at a lot of stuff today. Get in here and tinker. The next video I'm going to share is going to be how to use the materials library. I'll also talk about how to use and when to use and how we can use shortcuts for layers, objects, and colors. We're also going to walk through how to set up a material test, even including some errors and uh-ohs. We're going to talk about that vector edit menu. I use it a lot. It's so powerful. In addition to image editing, we're going to talk about image tracing because this is where people have a lot of questions. We're also going to talk about focusing, marking, and positioning depending on devices. We do have cameras, we do have pinpoint positioning, and we can always use jigs. So that's going to be sort of where I go with this. If you have any questions about your device or about the software, please leave it below. As always, please like the video, subscribe. I'll see you next time.